Hello and welcome to On the Podcast of The Odd Couple. This is Siddharth here. Today with us we have Supriya Sehgal. Supriya has graduated from the prestigious college NIFT Delhi and has over a decade's experience in design and development of travel content for television, digital and print platforms. This includes writing and editing articles for national and international publication, curating a column, developing content for coffee table books, to writing scripts for TV shows and spearheading projects in the digital marketing space. Of her many travel avatars, she is happiest when penning a guidebook. It has something to do with the comprehensiveness of knowing a destination and the thrill of being on the road for long stretches. She has authored and co-authored over 40 books on travel for Lonely Planet and currently is the co-founder and content head at the Content Lab. Wow, that's quite a bit, Supriya. Welcome to The Odd Couple.
Woohoo! Thank you guys. So happy to be here.
Lovely.
Hey Supriya, how you been? And I just want to start the conversation with the big question, which is how does one get this job, man? It's like the most unbelievable job in the world, you know. I've always wanted to know, how do you get this job?
Oh, okay. Hi there, and so happy to be here, guys. How do you get this job? I don't know, man. I had a bit of an odd journey getting here. And I have to agree that it is the best job in the world. So that was exciting. But it was really kind of, I honestly just walked into the Lonely Planet office and said, can I do a gig for you guys? I got a test. I did the test well, supposedly, and I got the gig. And then it didn't kind of stop from there. But to get there, I had to lose a job and then find my way meandering here and there. It took me a year to kind of find my resonance with travel writing, even figure that can I really get it right, like structuring a sentence or a book or article, whatever. But yeah, it wasn't easy. I mean, I think it was easy to get the job somehow, but the rigor after that was something for many, many years. One that I did enjoy, of course.
What's your background? What do you do in school? What do you do in college?
Right. So, well, school, whatever. I did my commerce and the boring thing. And then I went to college. I went to SRCC on a sports quota. So, played ball, bust my knee, all of that. So, not the really regular way. Busted CAT exam, like how? Like, did really badly. Ended up in NIFT, the prestigious NIFT, which was fun, really, and got me really exciting jobs later. I was working with Gap in Singapore for a while. I did a stint at Nike. I was in Urban Brands, etc. So did the whole rigmarole of a NIFT graduate one would do. And then during 2009, with the whole recession, my job was impacted and I never went back. But the good part was that before that, when I was in Bangalore, and my first job was in Bangalore, I was already backpacking when I came to Bangalore from Delhi. It was such an exciting world because in Delhi, people don't travel solo while you don't have money at that age. And also the whole thing of North India not being, rather safe, especially about 15 years ago, it was even more true, I think. People weren't used to women traveling. So I was already getting out every weekend to say that, let me explore this new state, new language, new whatever. So when this entire fiasco did happen, I was already in the mode to explore and be okay. And I was already happily traveling solo. Then I didn't just want to go back to a job and just sort of moseyed along, travel, and got some really silly gigs in the middle, like really silly travel things. But I did all of them to really get the rigor of writing going.
So you started off by first backpacking and stuff like that, but you weren't doing it by yourself. You were doing it with friends.
No, I was.
Oh, you were? You actually?
No, I was.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, strangely, I don't know. I think I was a bit naive, I guess, thinking that, chalo, let's go, like it doesn't matter. But I was really odd, and I've said this in many, many places, but I'll just say it anyway, that I would actually go to the KSRTC bus stand, the one in Majestic, and go on a Friday night and say, pin the tail on the donkey kind of thing. Where do I go? Okay, Mahe, okay, Hampi, etc. And I would literally not Google it before going. So like a real Dumbo, I didn't know that Hampi was a UNESCO sort of accredited place, or what was Mahe all about. Dumb of me to even not know it, like bad GK, I suppose, in school. But when I landed in the morning over there, I was like, okay, let's just go and figure out and pay $50 for the room and, really, really like backpack my way through. And even did like Mysore, which was just backyard to Bangalore, but it was so exciting for me because I was like, oh wow, like this is good. So close and I can just go in a bus. And KSRT just rocks. This is not sponsored by KSRTC, but I love them.
But for sponsorship, please call us.
I shall.
So the thing about it, traveling alone, right, for people like me, it's like going and watching a movie alone or going to a restaurant alone. I mean, it's not meant for everybody, right? I mean, At least I think so. Maybe you can change my mind about it, but it's daunting to think about, oh, I'm going to go to a restaurant by myself. What am I going to do? And then you go sometimes, and then you see people who just sit at the table. They're reading something, and So what's the whole experience of traveling by yourself? Is it like a self-discovery, or is it just the simple fact that, what, I don't have to deal with a boyfriend, I don't have to deal with my parents, whether they're eating food, whether we stop to pee, or is it just that the complete freedom of, I can just do things on my own timetable? Is it that, or is it self-discovery? What is it?
So I'm not gonna sex it up more than it really is. It wasn't self-discovery at all. It was really about discovering the places. So I guess I was curious. I didn't mind my own company. Perhaps they really liked it too. And God, there were no phones at that time as well. Or were they? Essentially, you were not on the net all the time. So yeah, you were reading a lot more. It's such a cliche, but you do end up talking to people more from the place. If you're with a gang, if you're with your own friends, etc., you kind of you're in your own conversations, right? But you do end up talking. And that helps you really know more about the place. But I wasn't on this big journey of self-discovery at all, so there's nothing glorious about it there. But of course, if you're sitting alone and there's time to really think, it is a good experience. It's enriching in some way, I guess. But I hate to put that whole arc of really something more than it really was. I really wanted to know India better. And the access of traveling, the thrill of going on myself. Also, I think I wanted to get out of Bangalore a bit more, because the entire routine of weekend, here you go, there you drink, you chill with friends, etc. Get out of the routine a bit, do something new.
True. I think Bangalore has very limited options to do. I mean, you either go to a pub or you go watch a movie, or if you're really bored, you go to Lal Bagh or go to a botanical garden.
Cubbon Park.
Right? Cubbon Park. Right? There's nothing else other than that to do. Go to malls. What else will you do?
On the contrary, Sid, coming from Chennai, where the only thing which we could do on the weekend was go to Pondicherry at the most, or Mahabalipuram,
No, but we had a beach within Chennai also.
True, but Bangalore's got so many destinations which are like, which are there, which is like Coorg, you got Dandeli, you got Hassan, you got Sakleshpur,
totally.
You got Hampi. There are tons of places in Bangalore which you can travel on the weekend. So for me, actually, like what Supriya was saying, after moving to Bangalore, I realized that there are a lot of stuff which I can do on the weekend rather than just going to a pub or, just hanging out with your friends on Saturday evening,
Yeah, man. I find Bangalore very culturally with it as well. But so is Chennai. I honestly think Karnataka is one of the best states in India. I honestly think there's just so much to do travel-wise.
Correct.
It's got such a variety, whether it's nature, whether it's this whole spiritual thing that people do. It's really good. So I'm quite fond of it. And I miss it here in Maharashtra.
So have you done much spiritual traveling?
I have actually. I wrote a book.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought I would bomb completely. It was called Best South Indian Temples or something. It was all 4 states. And then I did the whole entire shindig. But, and I thought I'll really be crap at it. But it was so much fun because I wasn't looking at it like a spiritual thing or whatever. I was looking for my more historical and get my facts right kind of thing. But man, the stuff that goes around. So yeah, I loved it.
What's your approach to start writing? Is it generally like you take a topic and you say, I got to do this? Or is it that you do the travel and then you say, I'm going to take an experience out of it and I'm going to do it and then write a book about it? How do you go about doing it?
So now that I have done quite a bit of all sorts of things, there is a bit of a structure to it. If I'm writing independently, an article, for example, and I have to pitch it, then it's about my experience and what I bring to the table. But of course, you have to pitch it in a manner that it is for the readers of that particular publication, magazine, whatever, newspaper, what you may call it. When it's a commissioned product, when it is a book or when it is an article or a coffee table book that's been given to you, it has to be structured to what they want.
Right.
So I think the approach kind of starts from there. Of course, when I was freewheeling on my own, didn't know jack shit about blogging, still don't know anything about blogging. Didn't know jack shit about creating a video or getting things, documenting stuff, man. I was so bad at it. All you would see is my feet everywhere. Oh, picture of my feet. Cliched as shit. But so I think the content structuring really happens on what it's made for. Now I can say it in retrospect. But for example, a lot of other experiences fit into some other projects as well. And that happens a lot with me since actively no one's traveling at the moment. Sorry, and I haven't for many years. I've kind of paced it out. For example, I've traveled all across India for so many years that I could extract an entire book for kids out of my experiences. So it was in retrospect that I retrofit the topics, the information back to the topic, which was about animals in India. So true life story for animals humans interactions in India.
Oh, wow.
So that was great. There was another book, again, for kids, because I have wanted to write for that age group and the genre being travel. Again, 25 adventuring trips around India. So that sort of came from the travels before.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
And planned later.
But how is the travel in India, man? I mean, like, if you compare India, for me, like, when we take India, you travel in India and you travel abroad, I find that traveling in India is a lot more difficult. And two, I don't feel it's paisa vasool at the end of the day. For me, that's my thing. But somebody like you, I don't know, like, when you traveled, you backpack. I've never backpacked in my life. Like, I'm the guy who wants to go to a resort, sip pina colada, lie down by the swimming pool and, get a massage at the end of the day. And that's what I look at the holiday, it's a getaway. I want to rest. I want to come back, get back to the rat race, So when I do that in India, I find that, oh God, $100 a night for a room gets you crap. If I had the same $100 abroad, the room would be like much more better. The resort is much more, giving and stuff like that. So what do you find about the whole travel thing in India? Who's it best suited for?
It's such a huge landscape, literally and figuratively, that actually caters to a whole lot of people. So you do have your top-end resorts, which are amazing and really good and very, very... I think the hospitality in India is really underplayed because we really bend over backwards for the hospitality part, right?
But those are really the pricey resorts, which are, you're talking about like $300 a night, like $20,000 a night. And then, they're really, really good. They're really nice. I agree.
They are paisa vasool for sure.
But if you're talking about like $100 a night kind of room, then they're really crappy.
You could do better. That's true, but it really depends what you're there for. If you want to just chill, I think the scene is becoming better over the years. I think there are a lot of hospitality and hotel industries listening into what Indians want, and they're not geared to the Western audience only. Like there was a time when Goa, Kerala, etc. was so geared to the Western audience that you would actually feel awkward being there.
Yeah, we feel like an outcast.
Really, seriously, India is one country where I feel racially discriminated by my own people.
Yeah, and that's true. And I've gone through it myself, so I know.
I once went to a restaurant and they had a table which was free, which was right there in front of me. And I went to sit down there and they said, no, sir, you can't sit down over here. I said, why? They said, no, we've reserved this table. And so they pushed us to the back of the room. And then walked in a couple of backpacking Firangis. And then they went to the table and they were just talking to them. And like, please sit down here. They want them at the front of the table as if to like say, you know what, they have white people coming to our thing, So...
No, that is why colonialism existed in India and they let them survive for 200 plus years.
Correct, yeah.
And finally they left not because we fought and won the freedom. They left because they became bankrupt after the Second World War. And then they left.
Yeah. No, I get it what you're saying. And the racial discrimination is something I have felt too. Very few times, but I have. Goa being one of them. But I think things have changed over the years, especially with the recession coming in twice over, successive years. You know that the white guy is not going to pay. He's going to sit with his one cup of tea and sip it for like 3 hours. And Indians pay. But they're difficult travelers, they're demanding travelers, and that is also the truth.
That's a good point, yeah.
There's a whole breed of the younger lot who are better, more conscious, more, just a bit well-mannered travelers. But look at that, guys, look at our population, man. When we're talking about you and me, we're talking about a very thin slice of...
Correct,
you're right. The general janta travels like they travel and they pay what they need to pay. So it's such a wide variety that I wouldn't want to pin anything down. I think what's a good thing to talk about is the fact that there are hundreds of companies and many, many prominent companies that are making that kind of travel more accessible, making that travel more mindful and spreading the message. And so that's great, and hopefully more people kind of catch on to it and travel like that.
True, because even with the advent of internet and a lot of these tech companies coming in, we have a lot of options like your OYO rooms, you have your Airbnbs, and there's so much more options than just like what you did, which is catch a bus, go there, find the closest place, or like how it happened to me in Port Blair. I landed there without planning. I just landed there, went to a cabbie. He happened to be a Tamarian and Mr. Money, and we said, Money, take me to one place. And he took me to some weird lodge. I think he's some friend's friend where he gets some commission. It's just so bad. I'll say, listen, no, this is not what I want, and it is probably my fault. But we found another place and figured things out. But it's so much easier right now with everything on your fingertips. You can do all the research. Back then, it was hard to even have information. Internet was there, but there's no information on the internet. Correct. By people like experts like you who have traveled to that place, experienced it, and giving your 2 cents about it and letting me make a more informed choice. So on that note, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Odd Couple Podcast. Odd Couple Podcast. A Pandemia Inc. production.
Are you ready?
A friendly fireside chat with friends where no topic is beyond a healthy discussion, punctuated with a laugh or two.
Check it out!
Tune in every fortnight on your favorite podcast network.
Welcome back, guys. And with us, we have Supriya. Supriya, there's another question which I want to ask you, which is, when you take abroad, right, and the younger generation, generally after their college or before their college, they always tend to take a break where they say that, I'm going to go and travel the world, and they pretty much backpack like what you were talking about. Do you find that this type of trend is starting in India? Because I'm asking you this question because you write, and so then some of your content is going to be written for these type of people. Do you find that there is a rise in these type of population?
Absolutely. I was just going to say, even, while we were chatting, Indian traveling is changing, and the younger generation, the folks who are traveling now, who perhaps are 19 and more, when you have the bandwidth money-wise to travel as well, are really changing the scape. And the whole blogging scape has become so huge. Your democracy with, whether it's your camera, whether it's your recording, paraphernalia, etc., has become so democratic and so accessible that people are traveling a lot more. So really, this breed is long gone, where we never used to record anything, just never took pictures. People are very switched on and doing that all the time. So, and the young generation is traveling because perhaps they don't feel too scared about, and they're okay taking it off for a year.
Correct.
I think financially, I would have been, no way, I would have never done that.
Forget financially. If I went to my dad and said, Daddy, I'm taking 1 month off and I'm going to go check out the world, I would have been slippered. Somebody going to get
my
that.
parents didn't know.
He's like, yes,
Really?
please go. Here's some money. Go to Velangani and pray and come back.
Correct.
Dude, my parents did not know I was traveling alone. So I would say I'm going with Isaac, Sita, and some 3 people. Maybe not make believe they were friends, but they would.
Are you sure, Supriya? Are you sure they're not imaginary friends?
Oh, docs here. So we can figure that
Let's
out.
talk about that.
Anyway, so once I think they read it in some article later. They're like, hey, you told us you were going alone? And then, of course, they were okay.
You didn't have to read a chapter of the holy book.
Not at all.
So, something that you said earlier, Supriya, was that how the current generation, they're capturing so much of their travel, whether it's through vlogs or blogs. They have a GoPro strapped up to them. They have all these paraphernalia and they're just documenting. But are they losing out on the very essence of travel, which is just like imbibing, just like soak in that experience? Because when I see everybody just taking photos, it's like going to a concert and everybody's having a phone and they're recording it. I'm like, what are you doing?
Dude, so disappointing.
I don't get it.
I know. Yeah.
What's your take on that?
True. So I do think that they, of course, as a statistic, yes, they must be taking so much more that I don't think people are really immersed into travel at all. But then there is a whole lot of other people who may be traveling a lot more slowly and making the conscious decision to do that. So I wouldn't want to diss them altogether.
Right.
But yeah, as what we see and consume on Instagram, every other person is traveling and putting out their reviews and influencer videos, really creating all that content. So yeah, and there has to be able to losing out on something, right? You're spending time behind a device. But not everyone.
True. In my 3-day travels, which I take, 1 day is spent for DP pictures, So yeah, I understand what you're talking about, Sidhu, about us missing out on the bigger picture of why we're there.
Yeah. But not everyone. I think there's also this other parallel conversation on being more mindful, being more immersed in the travel, doing more at the destination, like slow travel, slow strides during travel are actually things that people are catching on to.
Right.
Sustainability, responsible tourism. So which is great. I mean, at least it's in the parlance, it's out there, the words resonate with some crowd, if not everyone else. So I think it's okay. It's the way it is, man. I think it's one thing to really complain about it, but it's the way it is.
No, I completely get it. Now, since this whole pandemic has hit, everybody's been locked in. Yes, there are some idiots who are traveling around the world without a mask. And I mean, there are always that subset which is there. But I'm saying now, since the vaccine is out and soon, hopefully soon enough, we'll get our shots also. Only Dr. Ashish has been the privileged few who's got a
On that
vaccine.
lucky bum.
on that note, I just got my second dose yesterday, and yeah, so finally,
Yeah, so Ashish is calling me up and saying, hey, Sidhu, let's do a boys' trip. I'm like, hello, you're the only one who's got a vaccine. Look at his confidence over there. Or lack of care for us.
That's
But
so easy, boy.
so since, and that's
We're
where
not-
I'm coming to,
we're not
because,
supposed to be talking about this on air, Sidhu.
well, we didn't go anyways.
That's true. We're responsible.
But my point I'm trying to say is that one is we are responsible, but point number two, the only thing that comes out from everybody's mouth is Goa, and I'm just tired of that whole thing. I'm like, let's
Yeah,
go
man.
somewhere, and that is where I want to ask you, Supriya, not only for our benefit and all our listeners, tell us places where we can go. Apart from the usual suspects of Goa and your Pondicherry, or you're going to Manali and your
Gokarna.
Sikkim. I mean, those are all beautiful places. I'm not saying
But
that
they're so
something off the
standard.
beaten
It's
track.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have Maldives on the list, man. Come on.
Hey, I'm saying within India. Maldives is not India.
You don't
no.
think about it because you can't afford Maldives.
That's a difficult one because I think a lot of places are already so exposed. So nothing that is truly offbeat or truly sort of away. Wow, that's a tough one.
Why don't you think about it? And on that note, let's take a break.
You're listening to the Odd Couple Podcast. Odd Couple Podcast. A Pandemia Inc. production.
Are you ready?
A friendly fireside chat with friends where no topic is beyond a healthy discussion, punctuated with a laugh or two. Check it out! Tune in every fortnight on your favorite podcast network.
And welcome back. So, Supriya, where would you rather go than the usual places?
I don't know. So I really like central India. So that Madhya Pradesh bit, so it's not beach, it's not chilling, getting a beer kind of trip, which I suppose all boys would like and want. And therefore then, yes, your Goa and Gokarna of the world, Pondicherry, of course, high on the list over there. But I really like central India, so I don't know, man, how about like a forest break?
Yes, where's a good forest break, man?
So I like MP is really great. Man.
Yes,
I love
sir.
it. So right from your Satpura, so not only your Bandipur, not Bandipur, Bandhavgarh and Kanha, so not the bigger bits,
Yeah.
but Satpura, for example, is really, really nice. It's also more low-key, so you don't find too many touristy people over there. Got some great resorts, all of that. So it'll be a chill break, perhaps a river, not the sea, close to you, but really wind down and be in a quieter place. Yeah, of course, the booze goes wherever you go. But so I think I would do that. A lot of people are doing Kashmir because of the snow these days. And that would be something for the South Indian boys.
But we're always scared of Kashmir, yaar.
No. I'm telling you, no. I still remember in 2003, I went to Kashmir. And as a South Indian, I went to Delhi. From Delhi, we took the Jammu Tawi Express to Jammu. And as a South Indian, I come out of the station, get off the train. I'm like looking around and I'm like, what is this place? Where is Himalayas? I mean, for a South Indian, we think Himalayas is, Jammu Kashmir is like in the Himalayas, the snow-capped mountains. No, it was, and I went there in April, May. It is 45 degrees, dusty town.
Yeah, Jammu is lower. No?
So it kind of shattered
Srinagar and
this.
beyond would be very nice.
Yeah, then I took a flight. We flew over the Pir Panjal ranges and then we land in Srinagar. It's a nice, cool 20 degrees and it's gorgeous. Everybody should definitely go there. It's the best place on earth.
Yeah, and I also think like Uttarakhand really is, it's really beautiful.
I've been hearing so much of this Uttarakhand of late. I feel like that's a place like I really want to go to.
Yeah, and it's got easy access to get into Dehradun. I'm not pushing the state because I'm from there, but if you get into Dehradun, it's just an easy sort of 3 hours up and you're there in the hills with snow-capped views, if not in the snow yourself because it's already now fair. So that's really beautiful as well. So yeah, I'll give these two. I'm not saying Chhattisgarh, I'm not saying Odisha, I'm not saying the Northeast because it's just more difficult to get there and it needs a lot more time. So for the weekend, I would do this quickly.
But another place which we should talk about is Leh Ladakh, because when you talk about that region, everybody has to go there, and there's a huge biker community which, rides down to that. That's like proving grounds, Yeah, rite of passage type of territory that is, But people like me find it very difficult to go to Leh and Ladakh because a lot of people tell me that there are not so many great hotels or, there's... So at the end of the day, I've really not gone there because I heard that I need to use nature as my bathroom and, so is that true? Is that not true?
No, so if you're driving from Manali to Leh, which is a beautiful ride over to you should do it over 2 days. I mean, you will have to do it over 2 days. You reach the second day night. And yeah, there will be portions over there that you might have to go in the wilderness, but it's pretty well, infrastructurally, it's pretty much there now. And Leh, as being really the epicenter for you to then travel off from there, has tons of great hotels. In fact, now even in Nubra Valley, etc., where you would go off from Khardungla into Nubra Valley, across from the highest motorable road.
Correct, yeah, very famous.
Nubra Valley has some great places to stay. So I think that's not the issue. The issue that people aren't traveling really, again, mindfully there because, no, not even that. Leh has an airport, so you could get in easily if you don't want to do the entire drive. But the drive is so beautiful that you wouldn't want to miss it. I think that's something you should take our time for.
The problem is some people like us don't have time. So for people like us who don't have time, then it's like,
But no, man, Ashish, for Leh, because it's really high altitude, you have to give yourself a day to acclimatize, which a lot of people don't. They take it really, they don't take it seriously.
Correct.
And you as a doctor would know that that's lethal. And that happens. A lot of bikers, etc. also go through a lot of shit.
Correct.
No, I did lose an aunt of mine to, what is it called? Pulmonary edema because of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And she was asthmatic and they didn't acclimatize. Something happened.
This is the second person I'm hearing this from. Yeah, one of my wife's friends' mom also, or sister, something like that.
Or even younger folks, man. It doesn't have to be older people with illnesses. It's stressful on your body.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I don't like this idea of jumping in and jumping out of Leh because it does require some time, at least 10 days.
Really?
So you better scoop out the time.
Wow. That's going to be on my bucket list now.
You do feel a bit heady, man. I've been there 3 or 4 times. And doesn't mean the last time I was okay, the next time I wouldn't be okay. I've had this headiness and this rare air sort of not getting oxygen. So, but yeah, it's something to do, man. It really is something to do.
Yeah, most people who go there and come back always say it's like really, really good.
It's done to death. You'll find 100 blogs out there, but it's just so beautiful.
No, we should definitely do that trip. We should do that. Probably, I think we should do an Odd Couple podcast road trip.
Special.
And do a complete thing. Yeah. Obviously, you're a guide.
You can be a trustworthy guide.
Okay. Brush up stuff.
Yeah, you'll be the local Pahadi from him Pahadi to guide us through Saab aise jao. Yeah. On that note, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Odd Couple Podcast. Odd Couple Podcast. A Pandemia Inc. production.
Are you ready?
A friendly fireside chat with friends where no topic is beyond a healthy discussion, punctuated with a laugh or two.
Check it out!
Tune in every fortnight on your favorite podcast network.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. So, Supriya, again, now extending from my earlier question about post-pandemic travel and everything, but how is it changing? Because if I see somebody even remotely cough 10 feet away also, I suddenly coil back in absolute fear. And I get dreams. I have paranoid dreams where I'm in a crowded place. Nobody's wearing a mask. It could also be Chennai because Chennai, nobody's wearing a mask. It's as if COVID hasn't happened. But how is the whole travel experience going to change from the sanitization of the rooms? How paranoid we are as at least we are. How is it going to change? What's your take on that?
So, I think you are one of the more paranoid people. I perhaps may be also one of them.
Learn from the doctor.
Learn from somebody who's been vaccinated, please.
Yeah, I swear.
Don't worry, it's rolling out for you guys soon.
I don't think people are looking at it like that. It's a case of cabin fever. You want to get out and you're just out there and you don't care. And of course, there's so many reports that are flying about. So you do see people it's a vengeance travel, man. So like, I've been
right now, no?
in the room cooped up. Yeah, let me just get out and live it, because who knows? And also, of course, if somebody has not gotten affected by that, if somebody's seriously gotten affected in the family, etc., naturally they'll be more careful. But otherwise, people have been quite reckless about it. And perhaps, okay, man, to each his own if they want to do this. From the hotel industry side, obviously there's a lot of communication about COVID, etc. People are really like sanitization, distance, sanitizing the pen that you have to sign your bill off, etc. People are doing all of that, which is great. The only way I feel like it might change is people might want to do smaller properties travel. I may not want to go to a Meridian being bumped off with 3,000 other people versus going to a homestay which might be more private and more trustworthy in some manner. God knows. And I may want to travel on my own car. So these are the recurring conversations that people are having, and the travel industry is seeing. So I may go for a trek because I feel I'm in nature. I I mean, it's silly to think so that you may not get it there, but you feel like you may not be able to.
At least you're not
open it,
surrounded by
you know,
100 people around you, you know.
people. Yeah. So those kind of trends for sure initially. And of course, we have the Goa goers who don't give a flying fuck.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. When your ads has to, jump in an airplane and go there. I wouldn't do airplane travel just as yet. And a lot of people may not. But self-car driving, I think it's okay now.
So in that case, then we're looking at travel from within your maybe 300 or 400 kilometer radius, which is going to be like booming, right, around your area compared to like people who are traveling across the country, right?
True.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure like Andamans, Ladakh, etc. are the ones suffering at the moment rather than your weekend Coorg, etc. must be doing just
Oh, they're doing really great. I was there like
yeah.
a month back. It was,
See?
it's crazy.
Yeah, and I guess it's fine as well. It's okay. Because when the cases did dip, and I assume, tell me Ashish for maybe, right, that herd immunity may have set in to a certain extent now.
I don't know the way we're going with our second wave. Not too sure we've
Let's not
hit.
derail it.
Yeah, it's a high possibility. Things are starting to brew up. It's already started in Maharashtra. It's happening in Kerala. Karnataka is slowly starting. Yeah, we don't know, you know. It's anyone's guess.
Yeah, let's not jinx it. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. But not stopping on the travel, I mean, I see everywhere people like this.
No, I think, you know, if you look at it the other way, considering the whole economic angle of it, like the whole hotel industry took the biggest beating, if you ask me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they really suffered a whole year with nobody, you know. I mean, I think they're really compensating now. If you have a long weekend, it's like the prices are like 4-5 times what the actual thing is. Yeah, really. Coorg, which normally, you know, the range of hotels is from like 7 to 10,000 bucks, is like 20 and 30,000 rupees for a night.
Wow.
Yeah, for an average.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's okay. I think it's
I
fine.
mean, yeah, they need to make their money. To each their own. If you really want to travel, you got to pay the price.
True. The other thing that's happening is that this whole since a lot of companies are not still going back to work until June, or they already declared they're not through the year, especially international companies, I feel like this work from the mountains, work from the hills, work from home, WFH just becoming a different thing altogether, is a real thing. And therefore, you see a lot of Facebook groups, etc., propping up and encouraging that. I wouldn't mind myself, man, if I could do that. Like, drop this Bombay house and just take off, I would.
Yeah, I know a few people who actually moved to Goa and they're working from there for the last few months. And I know a lot of my colleagues within my organization who are no longer staying in a rented house, but they've gone back to either Kerala or Kolkata or wherever they're from,
Exactly.
right? And they're working from there and it's a far more de-stressing environment, whatever said and done.
Absolutely.
Even though we are working way harder now, and we're working way longer hours, but it's still a slightly less stressful environment.
If I could work from home, I'm going home to mom and dad's place, you know, where all 3 meals are cooked.
Online surgery.
Yeah, if only. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah. But I was really fascinated because actually the year before that, I was planning to buy a car and I was planning to do this road trip all the way to Northeast and spend a good 1 month exploring Northeast.
Not 1 month,
but-
you said 3 months.
No, I need to drive and come back also.
I remember
No,
this
1 month is only exploring that. I need to drive, reach there. I need to come back also.
I'm just
I can't
reminding
take a
you,
flight
you
to
said
come
3
back.
months, not 1 month. And then COVID
No,
hit.
I said 1 month exploring that place. So I'll be going, it's a total about 70 odd day kind of a trip which I kind of charted out, where stopping on the way, going to Gandikota, the Grand Canyons of India and all that. So, but I want to know more about Northeast. I mean, I'm sure you have traveled to Northeast, and what's the best places? I mean, is there something that people have to go? Because like what you said, a lot of people are going to Leh, Ladakh and the usual places. But I feel Northeast is still well
Rather
explored.
unexplored, yeah, fair enough. I haven't done all of Northeast. I've done Assam, Meghalaya, and Nagaland,
Okay.
which have been lovely. But I haven't done the Arunachal, I haven't done Tripura, etc. side. But I think Meghalaya is just amazing. It is. So it stands in my mind as high as Karnataka, which I really love. So to me, Meghalaya is one of those.
What's the type of scenery? Is it green or is it like what?
Super green, super lush. Yeah, because it's one of the highest rainfall, and the places gets highest rainfall. So it's super green in that sense. But lower hills, so not your Himalaya peaks, blah blah, obviously the snow there. But it's lovely. So that to me was one of the highlights, I think, for sure. And because it's so small, you can do it pretty thoroughly in a couple of, perhaps a few weeks' time. And it's just stunning. It's absolutely stunning. The other two places that I have been and really liked, Assam was okay, Kaziranga is great, all of that. It's got an indoor into Nagaland, and that's why we used to go there. We used to run photography trips earlier. And Nagaland to me was really intriguing, man. It's not so landscape-wise so stunning and beautiful if you've seen a lot of other parts as well. But culturally, it's something else. So the fact that the tribal lives still parallelly live alongside people, it's really something to see. So whether it's your Hornbill, which has become really popular now, photographers, etc., or even smaller festivals, or even if you get into a village and you're spending a night there and somebody just picks up an instrument and starts playing, they really are very true to their own culture, and they really sort of have a lot of pride around it, which is great to see.
And I heard
So
they're
for me,
really
Nagaland was
super
one of those
friendly
places.
people and no.
I love that.
So, some were obviously, but there were places there, I think or maybe this is also about many, many years ago.
Right.
So, inland India wasn't celebrated as company so well because perhaps people have come there and behaved badly. And I can understand that.
100%.
But
yeah.
I think now so many people have been traveling there, especially if you go to Mon district, which is really on the eastmost side towards Burma. In fact, it shares a village which is across Burma
Oh, wow.
and India.
Okay.
Yeah, which is really nice. You can actually walk down and say, yeah, we're in two countries. So all that they're not very exposed to inland travelers coming over there.
Right.
So perhaps we are a bit of a shock to them. Someone's playing music or being just very intrusive in photography. It's also the kind of people who travel, and I can understand their sort of grouse with that. But overall, yeah, I mean, obviously language is a challenge sometimes when you go in the interiors. Otherwise, people speak English because there are a lot of missionarized locations over there, as in many other places. So you get by English pretty easily. But it's beautiful. And it's pretty untouched still now.
No, I think you touched on a great point, which is about how travelers ruin things for the local people who are there also, right? So they might be naturally welcoming and friendly people, but the kind of experience, because I've seen how certain parts of Goa has just been trashed by the tourists, by irresponsible travelers doing their own things, littering the place, to speaking loudly, not respecting the local customs and
Yeah,
culture.
no consideration.
Yeah. So I
Just
think
like jumping queues, just simple shit. Like not even some complex.
Correct. Absolutely. I mean, once you go there, I mean, when in Rome, be a Roman. It's simple as that. And can't be too hard. But I guess it's a little hard for a lot of people, sadly.
But if you had a place which you would say that, these were the warmest to the, people who were most welcoming, where would you say that would be?
So difficult to put it like that, but let me share with you my experience in Chhattisgarh, which is such a off-the-map kind of place. Nobody wants to go to Chhattisgarh to holiday. And I also didn't go to holiday. I was doing several books over several years, and so I've been there about 7-8 times. And right down into the interiors in Bastar, which is that whole sort of sensitive Naxal kind of spot. And there's a lot of political conversations there as well. But if you stay out of that and you're going on your own peacefully, with a guide who's trustworthy, who the locals know there. Oh man, those villages and that culture is just something else. It is truly untouched by, I think they must be getting like very, very few thousand visitors over there. That too more sort of local folks. And so I was there for a festival called the Bastar Dashera, which is not around the Dashera as how we know it. It's about a 70-day Dashera about the Danteshwari Devi, their version of some Devi, and the different customs with that. The entire Bastar villages comes together in Jagdalpur. It's just amazing. I mean, it's got animal sacrifice. It's got a whole lot of other things that you may not sort of subscribe to personally, but when you see it as
It's an experience.
if you see it dispassionately, it's an experience. Yeah, I've been standing in a pool of blood with some 40 goats being come in front of me. Cut. And I was like, ew, I'm taking pictures here, but well, so, I mean, don't subscribe to it.
I mean,
but
yeah.
It was amazing.
It's not everything you have.
You're absolutely right, because I think central India as such is not on anybody's radar. Unless you're passing through, yeah, except for MP and Khajuraho and all that. But as you said, Bastar and your Chhattisgarh and Orissa also, because when I was charting my route map to Northeast, I consciously said, okay, I'm going to go through these areas because I don't know that I'll consciously make a travel to that particular place and stuff
you
like that.
definitely should.
I should.
Definitely should.
No, but like you said, that is, most of us never thought about those areas because it was hardly traveled. It's only now with all these younger guys who are going there and actually writing about it and putting it out there that, it's accessible to people like us. And then we say, oh, wow, curiosity kicks in. And then you say, wow, there's stuff over there which I need to go and see. So, it's that whole changing environment of travel vloggers or bloggers and people who write about that stuff, which gives us an
I
insight.
have to give it to them, man. Documenting is a tough job. Like, you really have to. And of course, there are tons of crappy ones as well. But the good folks are doing some good work as well, so it's nice. And I don't know, you put it sensitively in a manner that it doesn't get inundated with 100 people coming in and spoiling. Because infrastructurally, it's not big at the moment. But it's getting there.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And even the waterfalls, I can't believe it that we have stuff like this we've never spoken about. It's so under the radar.
Have you traveled as much abroad? Do you do much travel abroad, or you're still in India, discovering India?
So I've done abroad while working. I had the opportunity to go for meetings, etc. And I would take a couple of days off and do my walks, definitely, and all of that. But I did, because of the journalists and the travel space, I did get a chance to do junkets, which is the way it is. But so they obviously showcase a part of the country that they want to showcase to you as an Indian consumer. So we write to the Indian audience. But still, I would stay back and then explore the way I would like to. So yeah, done over 25 countries maybe. So yeah, I have a sense of things.
So how is travel abroad? Do you find it easier? Do you find it accessible? Do you find it that or you just don't want to compare the two?
It's incomparable for sure because infrastructurally we're not there at all. Access to as well. So getting in a overnight bus here is a very different experience than getting an overnight bus there. So I think, and I also haven't traveled to a country where language would have been such a big issue.
Okay.
So that I don't know. So for example, I haven't been to China and I wouldn't know that if that would be a point.
He's been to China. He can tell us.
Yeah, Ashish has a theory that I'm the one who bought the coronavirus. I'm patient zero.
I'm damn sure.
Because I was there in September of 2019.
Dude, it's same only.
Yeah. Super spreader.
I apologize to everybody.
I'm reporting you to the government.
No, but the point, which you make a very good point, because when I was in China, yes, there's a huge, 98% of the people don't speak English. And we are stuck with these translator apps. Thank God, at least we have that now. So what really helped me out over there is the Lonely Planet guidebooks.
Yay!
It really, really helped me out because just simple thing like going to the Great Wall of China from Beijing, and it had all the numbers of the taxi drivers, English-speaking taxi drivers. I called up. Yes, it's a little pricey. There's a premium to it. You can blindly trust that, right? There is somebody who's tried and tested. You're at peace of mind. Sure. You're not like, oh, is this guy going to fleece me? That's typical Indian attitude, right? Oh, this guy is definitely going to ask me extra money, and you're already playing arguments in your head on how you're going to counter it. Yeah, but these Lonely Planet guides were a lifesaver for. I haven't traveled much, but it is my go-to thing, and I think we need to start downloading your books also, Supriya. If you're going to planning to explore India.
I don't think you travel abroad. Obviously, things are way easier because you're not looking behind your shoulder all the time to say someone's following me on that. So in India, that happens a lot to the women travelers. I think Corona might have pushed that out a bit. People don't hang around in your vicinity now, which is great.
Right.
But other than that, the sense of safety is a lot more. But I would still not do something over there which I wouldn't do in India. So that's my rule. So if I'm in Portland, for example, in the US, I would still not get out at 10 in the night because that city shuts down. And there are a lot of people over there who look a bit threatening as well.
Correct.
So I won't be doing that in Bangalore here or Delhi here. So I would do it there. So that's my thumb rule.
Yeah, so basic sensibilities is... I get it.
Common sense.
Yeah.
But you also let go and be a bit trusting, otherwise you never experience. So you got to go by a hunch, man.
Correct.
Do you have any do's and don'ts on a travel trip, like for amateurs or for new time people who are thinking about it?
Sure. So don't be like what I did, that you would go and just put your finger on the list of buses and say, okay, I'm going there.
Don't do that.
Yeah. I think be more trusting would be one thing, even within India. Of course, having your head about yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't experience, and most people are not out there to get you. So that being the premise, I think really helps.
True.
Of course, don't be a dumbo and just walk off mosey on with someone. That's silly. I also feel like totally respect where you are. So, for example, if I'm in a Banaras, I wouldn't wear them by the shortest shorts that I own and trippies around the place in front of temples because obviously they wouldn't take
Correct.
it well. And then they'll complain later. So I think that sense of respect is very important. At the same time, not pushing out any message to don't be body positive, all of that. That's of course great. But being respectful to the place where you are, yeah, sensitive, sensible about your own safety as well, of course. That would help. I mean, come on, man. Carry your own number, your point of contact person in your bag or somewhere on you, because should you get into trouble, if somebody should be reaching you. With phones, that's kind of easy now because people can dial back to where you are, but just basic stuff like that. Not booking and booking on the go, I think is still fine if you arrive at a place in sensible hours. Like I'm weirdo. I reached Mahi at 3 a.m. in the morning because I didn't know the so close. So you start at 10 in the night, you reach at 3 in the morning. And I didn't know it was a legit booze stop for truck drivers because of the taxes, because it's part of Pondicherry. Union Territory. So I'm there at 3 o'clock in the morning, very short hair, look like a boy then. Right? They know what that was. And people are thinking, who is this man weirdo standing like this? And thinking, oh, cool, chai shop, I should go there and find out. Haven't booked a place, all of that. And no chai shop, obviously only booze shops open, shady crowd around, dumb shit like that. Walked into a hotel, saying, please guys, let me sit for a while. And they were like, we're not going to take single ladies, we cannot take.
What?
Single ladies. Yeah. Because who are you, shady business? Have you run away from
Thank
home?
God. All this time, I feel vindicated in Mahi now. Always they say single guys not allowed. No, single girl not allowed.
Girl, yeah.
Too good.
First, I think you had to figure if I was a girl or a boy. Very short hair. So you were like, I single girl. I took an auto and I went northwards to across Kerala on the northern bit. So crossing across with a Guju auto guy.
Oh, really?
Who could speak
What are the
Hindi
odds?
in miles. I'm like, wow, what are the odds? So I spent 2 hours going up and down so I could just reach a sensible hour to come back to mine and then start my shit. So yeah, don't do shit like that. The lesson that I would like to give. Otherwise, just go by the instinct, man. There's no reason.
Yep.
Really.
Another one I wanted to know was when we come to beaches, right? In India, it's all on the west coast. I mean, on the west coast. Why not the east coast? So do you have any nice place on the east coast other than Pondicherry on the east coast?
Yeah. So I think now Orissa has a lot more. I have personally not been to Orissa, so I don't know the Puri side. And I'm sure off Puri there must be a lot more, which is more sort of low-key and not touristy. But I think the vibe is very different because they are not the kind that have shacks and you can chill.
Okay.
It may be visually very nice and like landscape might be nice. But that vibe is still only in Pondicherry and Goa. In fact, Maharashtra doesn't have that either. That shack thing everywhere. Karnataka has so many beaches up north, right? It's so beautiful. Udupi and off Udupi. So nice. But yeah, again, they're also very, they're not the kind that you want to chill at the whole day. So yeah, unfortunately, nobody's developed that.
Like for me, Andaman has such a beautiful beach.
Oh yeah.
But
Very.
the whole accessibility and the cost of the thing, like you're going to Havelock Islands and you want a hotel, you can't stay there for less than $8,000, so it is expensive for the common man,
That's true.
So and what you get for that is like it's not so great, so you'd rather just fly to either Thailand or Malaysia or some country like that, and you have the same kind of coastline and it's much more value for money.
Or better, or cleaner.
Yeah.
But that really is the truth. Like Gujarat, etc., has a wonderful sort of more state and less wavy beaches, but it's just not the state that you want to grab a drink at or can do.
Correct.
So unfortunately, our beaches are not developed to that standard of tourism because they may have a spiritual angle or another angle. But really, unfortunately, Goa, Gokarna, etc., in that belt. We keep complaining in Maharashtra, where are the shacks? We want to have a big house.
But half of Maharashtra is in Goa anyway, so like for me, going to Goa now is like going to mini Mumbai. It's like that, If you go there on a weekend, it's Mumbai crowd, full Mumbai crowd.
Yeah.
So final question to you: if I wanted to go somewhere in India and discover something new, which is your place in India which you feel is like this is home? This is like my place,
So for me, I feel like that in Kerala, by the way.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Strange as it may be, yeah. I absolutely love it, but that's obviously not the answer that you were looking for because
Seriously. Yeah.
And both of us are from there, yeah. It is beautiful, no doubt.
Yeah, the backward.
I totally love it and I love traveling there. Whether it's backwaters, hills, or the sea, etc. I just love it. I love it. But of course, I think Chhattisgarh really, to me, honestly stands out as a destination that it's really under the radar and people haven't experienced it. So scooping out a couple of days and going there would be really lovely, very eye-opening from a very non-holiday perspective. More sort of culturally rich and something new to see that you would have not imagined. Yeah. So I would still have that as top of my list. And man, if you take any state, there's just so much to do. This is a very exciting conversation.
Yeah.
It can go on for hours.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the beauty of India, right? Every place has so much to offer. And we are spoiled with the problem of choices, right? Of too many choices, too many good choices. Yeah. Let me put it that way.
But I think the problem is with us in the way what we think is a holiday, which is like for us, if we think it's a holiday means you need to grab a drink, you need to have that swimming pool, you need to have this. But I think like what somebody like Supriya does with a holiday is discovering a new place, discovering a new culture, discovering new people, seeing how you can get to interact with this new place, and that's what you take back from that holiday. So your idea of holidaying is what really matters. And the majority of people all think about the only entertainment quotient type of thing.
No, likewise, I think sometimes you really need to kind of wind down, but you don't want to go exploring about and rambling about the countryside. You want to chill. Yeah, but I feel like smaller boutique hotels in that sense are just way more chill. I wouldn't be dumped away in a hotel or a resort. I think that's not my scene completely.
Okay.
But smaller hotels, boutique spaces are just way better. And of course, homestays, especially in Karnataka, just brilliant. And Kerala.
Yep. Great. Thank you so much, Supriya, for joining us on the Odd Couple podcast. Next time, we're going to plan a trip. We know who we're going to trouble. So please watch out and you might regret coming on this show. Anytime you have any doubt, hey, Supriya, what about this place? How do I book your tickets?
Block.
Exactly. But at least we have the liberty of chatting with Supriya. But guys, please do follow her on Instagram and Twitter. I'll put that in the show links. Or just go to supriyasehgal.com. And also, if at all, worst case, buy the guidebooks that she's written for Lonely Planet. I think it is the best place to go to for any kind of clarification or planning a trip. So thank you so much, Supriya, for coming on the Odd Couple podcast. Learned a lot and can't wait to travel and once I get the vaccine.
Thank you so much, guys. This was really great. Loved it.
Thank you, Supriya. Until the next time, guys, take care, stay safe. See you around.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.